Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of Riz Talks. I'm your host, Riz, and I'm glad you could join me today. Our motto is to think again about our views. Let us challenge the way we see the world and ourselves. It's time to reconsider who are we really? Do the things we hold to be true even matter in the grand scheme of humanity? Today, we're diving into a question that has impacted the whole world, that would have seemed absurd 6 months ago. Has Donald Trump, the man who once promised fire and fury, who assassinated General Qasem Soleimani, who withdrew from the nuclear deal and called it the worst deal in history, has he now effectively surrendered to Iran? Let's talk about Trump's tribulations. Did the US Israeli war aggression in Israel culminate in a strategic surrender? Not on the battlefield, but at the negotiating table. I know it sounds like cognitive dissonance wrapped in irony and served with a side of chaos. But bear with me, the facts paint a picture so strange that only one word fits: tribulations, surrender. Today's episode is titled Trump's Tribulations, the Art of the Fake Deal. But before we get to the absurd spectacle of a US president canceling his own negotiations while claiming he holds all the cards, let's look at the real battlefield, not the one with missiles and drones, though that matters, the one with oil tankers, insurance premiums, the Strait of Hormuz. Normal traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, which carries about one-fifth of the world's oil, has collapsed for the last 69 days. Before the war, over 100 vessels used to pass daily. Between April 20th and 23rd, just 9 oil tankers made the transit. 9. Brent crude has surged past $120 at times, but that's on paper. The actual value of oil is already crossed 150 US dollars. And in countries like Japan and South Korea, Philippines, and others, nations that have nothing to do with this war, crude oil imports from the Middle East dropped significantly. This is not a war. This is an economic hostage crisis. And the world is being kept hostage by two people who started this war. And the hostages are the entire global economy. Looking at a recession, depression, or a deep depression. Iran isn't winning through strength. It's competing through asymmetry and narrative. So, how did we get from maximum pressure to this surrender? Let's zoom in on the real game Iran is playing. It's asymmetric warfare. In that arena, Iran isn't trying to win fast. It's trying to make winning too expensive for everyone else. Iran knows it cannot match the US or its allies in conventional military power. No air superiority, no global bases, no trillion-dollar defense budgets. So instead of competing directly, it flips the rules by using cheap drones instead of fighter jets, missiles instead of air force domination, speedboats instead of large naval fleets. Why? Because a $20,000 drone forcing a $2 million missile interception is not a battle, it's an accounting problem. It is the thousands cuts strategy. Think harassing ships in the Strait of Hormuz, supporting allied militias across the region, cyber and intelligence operations, strategic disruptions rather than full scale war. Using fast attack boats, drones, and mines can disrupt global shipping and raise insurance, thereby energy costs worldwide. Iran has shown that. It's like being nibbled by 1,000 mosquitoes. None are fatal individually, but together, you're not sleeping. Iran extends its reach through non state actors and regional allies with diplomatic and intelligence support from Russia and China. This gives it wider geographic influence. It's playing multiplayer 21st century game, while others are still stuck in single player mode. If US does not wake up soon, they will not be at the table when the decisions are made. One of Iran's most underrated advantages, it doesn't rely on a single command structure. Recent reporting shows increasing decentralization of military control in various states, meaning if you take out the head, the body keeps moving. Iran doesn't just fight militarily, it weaponizes geography. The Strait of Hormuz is a pressure valve on the global economy, and it's not going anywhere. Iran doesn't need to close it. It just needs to make the world nervous enough that oil prices spike. That's asymmetric leverage at a planetary scale. Interestingly, Iran's goal is not to defeat the US militarily, it's to outlast and outmaneuver politically. Because in asymmetric war, the stronger power must win decisively. The weaker power just has to not lose. Sounds familiar? Vietnam, Afghanistan. History keeps repeating. So when people ask, is Iran winning? They're asking the wrong question. The better question is Iran making the cost of defeating it so high that no one actually can? In this confrontation, the art of the deal meets the republic of survival. In global politics, perception often matters as much as reality. The Lego videos are shaping the narrative. Historically, now, to understand Trump's Iran policy, we need to understand Trump. He wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. The core principle: always have a better alternative. Always make the other side think you're willing to walk away. Never show weakness. In his first term, this translated into what his administration called maximum pressure. By 2019, the US had removed 1.5 billion barrels of Iranian crude from the market daily and denied Tehran 10 billion in oil revenue. They sanctioned over 1,500 Iranian entities. They assassinated the uh, leader of the forces. The message was clear: surrender or collapse. But here's the problem: Iran did not collapse, it adapted. It found new customers, China, in particular, which was importing over 1 million barrels of Iranian crude per day by 2025. It developed domestic industries. It deepened ties with Russia and built the axis of resistance. By 2026, when the US and Israel launched their major strikes, Iran was not a frightened nation. It was a bruised, angry, and surprisingly resilient one. They had learned from the almost decade-long Iran-Iraq war in the 80s. They had learned from the 12-day war last year. They endured 500,000 casualties, yet survived against a heavily Western-backed Iraqi regime. Now, we are in Trump's second term, and the man who wrote The Art of the Deal seems to have forgotten chapter 1, because right now he's doing the opposite of what a good negotiator does. He's negotiating with himself. Trump spent his entire first term attacking the Obama-era nuclear deal as a disaster. He pulled out of it. He reimposed sanctions. He promised a better deal. And now, after a devastating war, he's being offered essentially the same deal, maybe even not the same. Recently, the most humiliating sequence of events in modern US diplomatic history occurred. On April 25th, President Trump canceled the planned departure of his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son in law, Jared Kushner, to Pakistan for a second round of indirect negotiations with Iran. His reason: I won't fly them for 18 hours to have a conversation that leads to nothing. On the surface, this sounds strong. We hold all the cards, he wrote on Truth Social. If they want to talk, they can call us anytime. But here's what happened: Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Arachi, left Pakistan, heading to Oman, back to Pakistan, then Russia. He went to meet with Pakistani mediators, delivered Iran's proposal, and then left. He did not wait around for the US team. He's now in China. Iran is moving on with custody of the nuclear material to Russia, finalizing the joint control of the strait with Oman, working with China so they support as they continue with most of the GCC and regional countries. Europe will play along with the toll as the cost of doing business. While Trump has been claiming he has won since the first day, Iran has been going around winning politically and learning the narrative. Every political media outlet from Axios to Al Jazeera knows they have to wait for Iran to confirm what Trump administration says. It's not diplomacy, it's theater. It's a TV show. While obviously some players making a lot of money on the stock market. And according to Axios, Iran has given the US a new proposal through Pakistani mediators that focuses on reopening the Strait of Hormuz with the nuclear issue and other matters to be discussed later. Do you see the strategy? Iran is negotiating with everyone, not just the US. They are talking to China, they're talking to Russia. They are part of the key Belt and Road initiative by China. They are talking to Oman and Pakistan. They're talking to Europe. They're making the United States irrelevant to the region's future if they don't come to the table. And the US is deploying a third aircraft carrier. The US has George H.W. Bush joining two others. That's 3 nuclear-powered super carriers, over 200 aircraft, 15,000 soldiers. The last time 3 US carriers were in the Middle East at the same time was in 2003, the invasion of Iraq. Does a nation that holds all the cards need 3 aircraft carriers to pressure a country it claims is on the verge of collapse, whose army, navy, air force have been eliminated? Or does an amateur team panicking with domestic approval rating as low as under 30% in some polls need that kind of firepower? So, where is this heading? Let me paint you a picture of the next 6 months. Scenario one, the deal, or the MOU at this point, will not be a deal. Trump will eventually have to agree to negotiate. This is just an agenda. The terms will look suspiciously like the JCPOA. Iran will cap its nuclear program, sanctions will be lifted. Trump will declare it a great victory. He's the spin master. Scenario two, the war continues, but differently. The US will not launch a full scale invasion. That would be political suicide. Instead, the war will become a low level naval conflict. Iranian mine laying boats versus US destroyers, tanker seizures, and an endless blockade, which we've seen recently. This is the recipe for an endless low grade war that bleeds the global economy without ever being won. The third scenario is where Iran achieves its strategic objectives without surrendering. And remember, they have been working on that strategy throughout the war. The Strait remains contested, but Iran's economy, though damaged, survives. Iraq, already an Iranian ally, Syria secured, Yemen, the Houthis control the Red Sea, Lebanon, Hezbollah is stronger than the Lebanese army. The US has spent trillions, lost dozens of soldiers, destroyed its own reputation, and achieved nothing except proving that a determined non nuclear state can survive the full force of the American military. Which scenario is most likely? Scenario 3? Because Iran has been playing a different game. And so far, the wish list from both sides is not meeting at any point. While the US was fighting a 20th century war of bombs and carriers, Iran has been fighting a 21st century war of alliances and resilience. Look at the map. Iran has negotiated a 25-year comprehensive strategic partnership with China, deepening military and economic ties with Russia, including joint and naval exercises, diplomatic channels with Oman, Pakistan, Qatar, and Turkey, just name a few. Engagement with the European powers such as France and Germany, who still want to save the nuclear deal framework. Iran is not isolated, Iran is connected. The United States, by contrast, is increasingly isolated. The European allies are nervous about the economic fallout. The Gulf allies are quietly seeking their own accommodations with Iran because they know the US security umbrella has holes. And the global south, China, Russia, India, Brazil, and South Africa, are watching and concluding that the unipolar moment is truly over. In conclusion, the war has been a strategic failure for the United States. After nearly 70 days of conflict and the deployment of 3 aircraft carriers, Iran is not defeated. Its government has not collapsed. Its military has not surrendered. Its negotiating position, remarkably, has not weakened. The Trump administration is trapped. Its own maximum pressure rhetoric and beating their chest has painted it into a corner. Any deal that does not look like an Iranian surrender will be attacked by conservatives as a second Obama deal. But continued war is politically untenable, especially with the midterms coming and the approval ratings plunging. The result is paralysis, cancelled negotiations, contradictory statements, and a president who claims to hold all the cards while the other side walks away. Iran's long term strategy is working by negotiating with everyone. The US can bomb, blockade, and sanction, but it cannot force Iran to accept a humiliating surrender, and it cannot rebuild the regional order without Iranian cooperation. This is dangerous for humanity. A prolonged conflict in the Strait of Hormuz threatens the global economy. Oil prices above $150 per barrel will trigger poverty in many parts of the world, and it has already started. The war has already claimed over 5,000 lives, and the risk of escalation, a miscalculation by a naval commander, an accidental strike on a civilian target, a cyber attack on critical infrastructure remains terrifyingly high. But the deeper danger is the erosion of US credibility when the world's superpower, after 70 days fighting a regional power, and emerges with nothing to show for it except its aircraft carriers and cancelled negotiation of different claims every day. The message is clear. The United States can no longer impose its will on the world. The unipolar moment is over. The multipolar world has arrived. Watch who calls whom, watch who travels where, and ask yourself who is behaving like a confident power Who is behaving like a panicked one? Because the answer may surprise you. Because history tells us something fascinating. Sometimes the side that looks weaker ends up reshaping the entire game, same as Afghanistan and Vietnam. So, who are we really? Are we the people who learn from history, or are we doomed to repeat the most tragic mistakes? Iran is not winning in the conventional sense, but neither is America. It's not marching armies across borders or claiming decisive battlefield victories. From superpowers to regional countries, Iran's strategy has been creating leverage in the Straits. It will become similar in concept to how global choke points like the Suez or Panama canals operate. This isn't a traditional war with a clear scoreboard. It's a slow strategic contest of endurance, influence, and narrative. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Risk Talks. Are we living in a way that will leave this world better than we found it? Are we going to let just two people continue uh, keeping the world hostage, killing leaders, killing school children, killing journalists, killing aid workers? How will the world survive? It's not time to act. So please share the message with others. Think again, challenge ideas, join the conversation, and subscribe. This is Risk Talks. Be curious, be kind, and come back for more.